The American flag represents the values of America: life, liberty, and justice for all. While we haven't always realized that or lived up to that, that's still the value it symbolizes and what we want to attain as Americans. If you put another flag up connected to America, you have to internalize all of the values that flag represents. Recently, there have been pride flags and BLM flags placed on the embassies of America around the world. What does that symbolize, and what can we draw from it? I'm Matt Odegaard. Welcome to Church Public. Let's get started. Thanks for choosing Church Public. I really appreciate you coming here today. If you are listening to this, thank you very much. You can also watch it on YouTube and search Church Public as one word there. You can also go to churchpublic.com and get all of the episodes there. You can subscribe on iTunes or Spotify or Google. Please do subscribe, like, review. I appreciate that, and it helps me get more awareness out, because ultimately I want you to know more that is going on in the culture so that we can stand up and speak with intelligence, with understanding about what's going on, and present the values that we hold as believers, as followers of Jesus, to this world that really doesn't hold the same values. We need to be able to speak intelligently about these things and to have dialogue, hopefully good conversations that can help other people understand and appreciate as well what we want to see the world look like, because we want people to understand Jesus and follow him. We are in this weird place where we've been talking about freedom of speech, freedom of religion, but right now we're actually talking about freedom for this nation. And the flag is a representative of that. The American flag has represented that for as long as America has been around. It's changed a bit, but the flag represents the values of this nation. We'll even talk about the pledge in just a little bit, but freedom and justice for all is a big part of the symbolism of the flag. Again, as I mentioned, we haven't always lived up to that, but that is the goal, living up to that. We're going to talk more about what the other side would like to do with the flag and what we've seen done throughout the years with burning the flags and things like that. Obviously, the flag doesn't mean that much to some, but it does have value. It is a symbol, and it is a lasting symbol that means something. And that's not only speaking from an American point of view. All of the nations of the world have their own flags, and the flag means something because the flag symbolizes what that nation holds dear or values, and it symbolizes the values of that nation. So if you put up another flag with the American flag, you are giving the full weight of the country, for instance here, America, and all of its values. So if you post the American flag in the same place or on the same pole as another flag, as America, you're saying we agree 100% with the values of this other flag. So in the past couple weeks, we've seen pride flags, BLM flags at United States embassies across the globe. And in fact, the Secretary of State Blinken in the Biden administration has given the approval, intensely express approval, for pride flags to be flown on the same flagpole as the American flag. This is in essence saying that all of the values of the LGBTQ plus community are intrinsic in all that America stands for. In addition, there have been BLM flags incorporated at U.S. embassies across the globe. So this is saying you cannot take down the American flag or the pride flag or the BLM flag without taking away all that is America. Now, is this really true? Well, apparently in some leadership of America, they would say yes. They would say BLM Incorporated and Pride, LGBTQ plus are at the very heart of the American way of life. Others in America might not agree. If you examine some of the goals, for instance, of BLM Incorporated, they have said expressly they are trained Marxist. They want to abolish the nuclear family. They want to abolish police, abolish prisons. Even AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, said just a couple of days ago in a news conference that the way to reduce crime in the cities is to remove, get rid of, build less prisons. If you build more hospitals, then you'll have less crime because more people will not be in prison. If you think that sounds backwards, that seems more logical. Criminals who do crime should go to prison. A plus B equals C, right? That's just how it works. You do a crime, you're a criminal, you go to prison. To remove the prison from that equation doesn't stop the criminal, it doesn't stop the crime, it doesn't stop anything other than now we don't have a place to put the criminal. But again, I'm just reading you the stated goals of BLM Incorporated. They want to abolish police, they want to abolish prisons, and they want to get rid of capitalism. Capitalism is the economic vehicle that allows all the ships to rise. A rising tide raises all ships, right? So if more people make more money, then all the people can make more money if they apply themselves and apply themselves. That's it. That's capitalism in a 5-second nutshell. But the question is, do all of those definitions or stated goals of BLM Incorporated sound like freedom and justice for all? Does it sound like you will have justice if there are less police in prisons? Does it sound like there will be freedom if you don't have families that are free? Again, the nuclear family, we talked about this the other day, but a mom and a dad and a child, they want to abolish that, like get rid of that. So that is not a normal anymore. We played the Blues Clues thing the other day where that's clearly the goal. Clearly the goal is to have families of all shapes and sizes. And then, as we talked about in the definition there, if everything is a family, nothing is a family. So does this sound like freedom and justice? And then, of course, just going back to the top of the stated goal and even the definition, if you're talking about trained Marxist running an organization in a Marxist way, did the Marxist communism of Russia work out? Does the communism of China now allow freedom? Just talk to people in Taiwan or Hong Kong. Does Venezuela sound like a lovely place to visit right now? If you answered no to any of these questions, then BLM Incorporated does not match with American values, and yet that's what we're talking about here. If you fly the BLM Incorporated flag at the U.S. Embassy, you are saying inherently, implicitly, explicitly, I apologize, you're saying directly, that's more simple, right? You're saying directly that America agrees with all of the tenets of BLM Incorporated. Again, I'm not getting into the semantic overload of whether Black Lives Matter. I'm not getting into that today. I'm not talking about individuals. I'm not talking about race. I'm just talking about organization. In the organization of this, does that organization sound like it represents all of America? Again, as I mentioned, in the pledge, which we'll talk about in a moment, freedom and justice for all in America has not always happened. That is true. Should we fix that? Yes. Should we keep working towards that? Yes. Does this organization really help us do that? That's another question, and we'll get to that another time. But to equate that organization with all of America idea and values doesn't seem equal to me. You can draw your own conclusion on that. And I'll say too, you can support whatever you want. I ultimately don't care what you support personally. But if we're talking about America, and we're talking about the U.S. Embassy, and we're talking about showing American support of a program, or even in this case, a nonprofit, which America is not supposed to sponsor any nonprofit, period. That's just actually part of the charter. Like that's not supposed to happen. And that's a side issue again. But in terms of values, in terms of ideology, America shouldn't be supporting something that is not 100% American. Again, liberty and justice for all. And then, of course, the pride flag, and putting the pride flag on the same flagpole as the whole of America. Again, even if you agree with the lifestyle, even if you are LGBT+, that does not comprise all of America. By statistics, it's not even close. So what does that mean? America is not an LGBT+ nation, though people are free to live that way. And regardless of your personal practices or your beliefs, to fly the pride flag next to or on the same flagpole as the American flag in an embassy representing America to the world is not appropriate. An additional flag doesn't just show support as you might think or you might want it to be. The additional flag, any additional flag, shows endorsement and the embodiment of all the values that we've been talking about. In the pride example, that would show to the world that all of America agrees pride, LGBTQ+ lifestyle, is as equal a value in America as freedom and justice. That clearly cannot be the case. Again, in America, there is freedom for you to practice how you want to. You can, in this sense, according to their tenets, love who you love. It's not illegal to do that. But America as a nation should not endorse or promote any other flag. I don't think they should fly the Christian cross. I don't think they should fly the Star of David. I don't think they should fly the Star and the Crescent. America should represent America. The flag has been, for the whole of America, the symbol of America. Just like any other country has a flag, America has a flag. That is the symbol of America. These other things, they are symbols of things that happen in America, but they are not symbols of America. Then there's the symbol of the flag at the Vatican. I'm just going to show you this picture. So this is a picture of the flag at the, I'm going to get this name right, the Embassy of the Holy See, which is technically the Embassy of the Vatican. And this is a direct assault on the Vatican, on the Catholic faith, and really on all Christian faith, as it were. Because to place the pride flag up at the Vatican is a direct assault on what the Catholic Church believes and proclaims. See, the problem here is it's not the question of acceptance. That's not the issue. The proposal used to be, this is the proposal, right? It used to be something like, it's my life, let me live my life however I want to live my life. Ostensibly, that's fine, right? You're free to live however you want as long as it doesn't hurt someone else. Now, we could go into other things and get scriptural and say there is scripture that says by living a certain way, you actually are hurting other people and potentially even yourself. But that's a topic for another day, because what we're talking about here is more symbolic, because we've gone beyond that. We've gone beyond this declaration that just let me be me. Now the declaration is, this is who I am. You must accept me, or you are doing actual violence to me, and you must be stopped. That sounds very extreme, but that is the statement that's being placed here. It's a far different thing, and I think it is quite dangerous. And it gets into speech, it gets into ideology, it gets into all these other things, but there is no place for conversation. You cannot have a conversation with someone who believes that by not accepting them, you are doing violence to them. And you see this in the fact that there's no compromise, there's no discussion, there is no unity, as the president has said. In their terms, it appears that unity is just, you must agree with me or you must be silenced. And we've seen this across social media, we've seen it in academic institutions, we've seen it in corporate America, where if you don't agree with this, you are removed from social media, you're fired. That is showing that you have to agree or you are removed. It's not, again, I actually have less problem saying, just let me be me and let me do whatever I want. Again, I think there are spiritual problems with that, because I don't want you to suffer and I don't want other people to suffer because of you. But ultimately, you have the freedom to do whatever you want to do. But if you say to me, I must agree, or I cannot exist on social media, I cannot exist in a job, I cannot exist in a university, that's a far different thing. And that is very dangerous to society as a whole, because now we are ostracizing, banishing people based on their beliefs, which is, again, the opposite of freedom and justice for all, as is the goal of America as represented by the flag. And corporations know this too. This is a side example, but I think this is a good example. This is an example because it shows that some of this, and I can't tell you how much because I'm not behind the scenes making these decisions, but some of this is not about actual belief. Some of this is about signaling that you are in this new religion. And it is, I'm going to have some more, we've talked about it in the past, I'm going to talk some more at a later date about how this is two competing religions. And competing religions often turn into battles that are worse battles. But anyway, this is two competing religions. And it's two competing religions because in certain religions, like Christianity, you come to Jesus, you come to God, you come to the cross, bearing your sin and your shame. And Jesus says, I have forgiveness for you, and I cover over your sin and your shame through the power of the cross. That forgiveness then allows you entrance into heaven. This new religion doesn't have such a penance. And if you look into puritanical or Calvinistic ways, or even in Catholicism, like these you would buy things in order to allow yourself more room into heaven. Like you would buy things to assuage your guilt. They were called indulgences. You would buy indulgences. In fact, this was what Luther, the Reformation leader, was arguing against in a lot of his 95 Theses. He was arguing against this purchasing and selling of indulgences to cover over sin, because that's not biblical. It's not biblical to buy something to gain yourself entrance into heaven. That's not in there. It doesn't exist, and really you can't do that. But that's the only thing this new religion has. You have to buy indulgences in order to assuage some of your guilt for the sins that you have. And the sin of this community is to not accept 100%, like we talked about, not just let you be you, but to not accept that your lifestyle is the best way to do something. So the indulgence is, I'm going to put up a flag or some sort, and it's a marker that I'm paying penance to the religion, to the community, to the society, saying that I want you to accept me back in, right? And here's what I want to show you. This is some corporations' attempt at this. And I think this is connected to the American flag because it's corporations trying to symbolize what they believe. So this is just a couple of corporations that have come out because, again, if you missed it, June is Pride Month. That is LGBTQ plus month. This is just a few corporations. So if you're not watching and you're just listening, I'll just read off a couple. Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Cisco, Lenovo, and Bethesda. All of these companies show their Pride logos, their rainbow logos. However, it's quite interesting because then there's a second column here. If you're not seeing it, it shows, these are, I think they're their Instagram or Twitter. I think they're Twitter handles, Twitter logos. And so the second column here shows the same: Mercedes, BMW, Cisco, Lenovo, Bethesda. And yet the logos in a certain area of the world don't have the Pride logo anymore. They just have their regular logo. That area happens to be the Middle East. Why, you might ask? Why would there be no Pride logo in these areas? Well, of course, it's because you're not actually allowed to be. There is no freedom in those areas. You're not allowed to be LGBT plus in those countries. You are not free, like you are in America, to, again, be whoever you want to be, love whoever you want to love. Again, we're not talking about spiritually. We're just talking about functionally. You are not allowed by society, by culture, by government in some of these countries. The leader of Iran, I think one time said that we don't have any homosexuals in Iran, period, like full stop. That was it, because they disappear. You're not allowed to have those lifestyles in these places. You cannot. So does that mean these corporations only believe in the LGBT plus cause when it is convenient or when they want to make money? That's, to me, what these logo changes seem to signify. If they truly believed, if these corporations truly believed in the LGBT plus, that's hard to say a bunch of times fast. If they truly believed, they would change 100%, right? After all, a belief is a cause more than skin deep. It's your belief. I believe in Christianity so much that I am willing to suffer for it. I'm willing to say these things knowing full well that there will be people that listen to this that hate me for it. I have friends that have been persecuted for these things, but that is my belief. I believe in what God has to say through his word, and I have to preach what he has to say, even when the culture doesn't like it, when it's not popular, when people are going to potentially even come at me personally for it. Because if you don't stand up for your beliefs, then is it even a belief? Obviously not. Obviously it's not. And then it really is just all political, and it's all hypocritical and not authentic, right? And this is the opposite side of the same coin where the flag is concerned. Does America, does the president, does the government, do all the people that stand for Pride and BLM really believe 100% that this is true? Or in some of these cases, are they just signaling? Again, I don't know how many. I can't say. I know what came out in the White House the other day was that 14% of his White House is LGBTQ+. Why that percentage? I have no idea. What does that matter? I think it just matters because 14% is a percentage, but it's not 5%, it's not 50%. And the people that believe in this are not going to be happy until it's more percentage. And the people that don't believe in it don't care about the percentage, right? I mean, whatever side you're on with these individual causes, and again, you are free to believe, exercise, be active in whatever you want. That doesn't make that much difference to me. But if you cannot say 100% of America is behind Pride and what they stand for, and 100% of America is behind BLM Incorporated, then the flag is just pandering. And that's why last year, I'll show you this one. And that's why last year, when the embassy in South Korea put the Pride and the BLM flags up, again, if you can't see it, there's the flag, and then it's not on the same pole, but on the building, the embassy next to it, you have the Pride flag and the Black Lives Matter flag. That's why when they put it up last year, under a previous administration, they had to take it down. They were asked to take it down. And again, there were people in that embassy and ambassadors and people who voiced their own opinions. And I don't have any problem with that. I don't care what you say. But to say that all of America believes these things is just not true. And therefore, it's not freedom and justice for all. It's only freedom and justice for some. So I want to talk about the pledge. And I think this will help us internalize this a little bit. So this is just the Pledge of Allegiance. Most of you probably know it. Most of you have heard it. Most of you have probably, said it many, many, many times. I was on a school board a little while ago, and we said it every time, and I think it's great. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So if you can't say, I pledge allegiance to the Pride flag of the United States, or if you can't say, I pledge allegiance to the BLM flag of the United States of America and its republic, then it shouldn't be on the embassy representing all of America. It's just not real. Again, we talk about what's real and what's not real. That's not a reality of what America stands for. And of course, the pledge ends with, and liberty and justice for all. And have we always lived up to this statement? No, we haven't always lived up to this statement, but that's the point. We should try to live up to this statement. We should continue to try to live up to, and freedom and justice for all. Liberty and justice for all, sorry. And this is where the conservative and the left differ. The conservative sees an injustice and thinks or acts towards, how do we get closer to justice? How do we continue to move towards more people having liberty and justice for all? The left sees injustice and wants to tear the whole system down and start over. That is the essence that's been the culmination of postmodernism, of critical theory, of critical race theory, and on, all of the capital T theory. Deconstruct the system, that's postmodernism, until there is nothing left, and in the absence of the system, utopia will emerge. That's the goal. That was Karl Marx's goal. Hegel, Engels, Marcuse, Derrida, Foucault, again, I'm not going to list them all, but that was their goal. It was deconstruct the whole thing, remove all the irritants of society and the hindrances of a systemic environment, and then the utopia will emerge. Rousseau talked about this too, in the idea of even the self, that the society poisons people and makes society bad. So if you remove the constraints of society, the goodness in the person will make the society good and ultimately lead to this utopia, or as I would say, heaven on earth. Unfortunately, as believers, we know that's not possible. Utopia, in fact, even by definition, means no place. Utopia, no place. Because there is no place that can be heaven on earth. And as believers, we know there is no place that's heaven on earth. And the Christian knows this to be true, but the devil has convinced the people that by doing these actions, by lies, by hate, by turning racism around and making more racism in a different way, that's going to clear out the systems, and that's going to create this heaven on earth. That's what the devil's been trying to do literally from the beginning. Like, he helped us humans get kicked out of the Garden of Eden, which was heaven on earth, to move into the world, and then he caused brothers to murder each other and on throughout all of history, and we're still hating and murdering each other and fighting against each other to try to get to some utopia that cannot exist on earth. And that's what I was talking about in terms of the Christian worldview versus this new religion's worldview. They want to create this heaven on earth, and you cannot create this heaven on earth. You can only create heaven through God, his son Jesus, the sacrifice on the cross, where you really didn't do any of the work other than showing up and saying, I'm sorry for my sins, and I want to go your way, God. That's the only way you really can get to heaven, and the believer knows that based on the word of God and what God has said through his son Jesus. Because this new religion cannot believe in God, just as Nietzsche said, we've killed God and we're putting something else in his place. This is the something else that's come into place. There is this religion, and it has a vacuum that needs these priestly rites, and as I mentioned, these indulgences where you have to pay for your salvation. But the only problem with this new woke religion is there is no forgiveness. You can't have forgiveness. And even indulgences like putting up flags, and I've seen bumper stickers and yard signs, they can't save you. They have no power to save you. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. So if the president and the administration and the politicians and the celebrities and the academics had their way, they would probably remove under God from the Pledge of Allegiance. In fact, many times they've tried, and many times it's happened. Even in one of the Democratic caucuses last year leading up to the election, they removed under God. They just didn't say it because they don't want it. But I think more than that, they'd like to remove under God, and they'd like to add in some of these new values and these new flags and these new things into the pledge. But then, is it even the Pledge of Allegiance? Is it even something about America? Not really. It really has nothing to do with America at that point. And this is a deliberate and intentional strike at the foundation of America, liberty and justice for all. It could easily become, and I think is becoming, liberty and justice for those that agree, and all others must get in line. Don't hear me wrong. America is not a Christian country, but it has been a free country. It's been free for people to express their religion, and it has been based on the morality of a Christian worldview that allows people a direction for their actions so that they act justly. Unfortunately, though, I think it's more and more becoming an unjust society. And again, just one example, and I could give lots, but one example is many people, including the President of the United States of America, that was removed from all social media. And all of the people that I've talked about over the last year that have been fired and for speaking up against these cultural goals and new norms of the left and of this new religion. Look at the students who have been chased off campuses for not getting in line with their new theory. The American government is supposed to be by the people. If we, the people, don't speak up and we don't voice our concern for these infringements, we may not have much freedom left. I'm not a Christian nationalist in the sense that I believe the only way we can survive is to put Jesus as the center of America and American government, and Christianity being part of the government is the only way forward. I don't think that's possible, because Jesus is God and our politicians are just men and women. Fallible men and women, of course, but America has been a great experiment in ideology and governance, and we can pray for America, and we can speak out and fight for values that make America a free country, because we are moving more and more to not being a free country. If you are removed from social media, you are censored and you're banished from the interactive landscape that is the public square. Like, that's why I named this Church Public. It deals with church, religion, and faith, and it deals with public and the public square where ideas and information and relationship is shared. And social media is that place. You can argue against it. It just is true. And if you're censored, if you're fired for your speech or your viewpoint, or you're not hired because of your speech or your viewpoint, that is not freedom and justice for all. And I mean, that's not even getting into some of the military things that are going on where they're being forced to undergo training to help them be a certain way ideologically. And there are governmental things that are happening. The Equality Act is another one that I've talked about that is still coming down the pipeline that will vastly change this world, this country, and the landscape of it, and force some things that are against other people's religious values. Again, that is not religious freedom. When the government forces you to do something that is against your religion, that is no longer freedom. It's, again, we talked about before, If you want to do something and it doesn't hurt anybody else, that's a libertarian view. You can do whatever you want. Now, spiritually, I think there are things that you do that impact other people and yourself even, but from a governmental place, you do what you want to do. That's the freedom of it. If the government says to me, I have to do what you want me to do that is against what I believe religiously, now we're in a place where I'm not free to practice my religion, and millions of Christians, Jews, maybe even Muslims are not free to practice their religions. That is, again, the opposite of religious freedom. It's not liberty and justice for all. Our speech and religion are supposed to be protected under the documents of this country. Hanging flags that are antithetical to American values does not promote freedom. It promotes conformity. And conformity never benefits all people. It only benefits those that the power gives value to them. Again, conformity has never helped in any society. The Puritans had some great values, but forcing conformity is not one of them. There are many other societies that we could go through that forced conformity, namely Russian, Chinese, Venezuelan right now. You can talk about some of the French Revolution things that, again, over and over in history, I forgot German. I mean, like, think of all the Nazi things that forced conformity that did not end well for most people. So conformity is not a value. Freedom is a value, but that means there will be things in the society that you don't agree with. But you can't enforce conformity and be free. You can enforce freedom, or rather, I'd like to say it this way, you can protect freedom and allow differing viewpoints and say, I don't agree with you, and that's okay. And we can have a dialogue about it. But if you force me, if you force others to follow you into a place that my beliefs won't let me go, I'm backed in a corner and I have no choice but then to say, I can't do that. Just like when they told Daniel, you're not allowed to pray anymore. You're not allowed to worship God anymore. You have to worship me. And I'm going to build a statue and you're going to worship the statue. And he and his buddies, Rack, Shack, and Benny, are like, we can't do that. And they almost all died for it. And yet God spared them. And God can spare us. He may not. So I'm not worried about Christianity. I'm not worried about me necessarily, but I want you to know everything you need to know so that you can speak to this, stand for this, and I guess at the very least, that you can forge in yourself a conviction that you know what you believe to be true. And if you don't agree with me, that's fine. I suggest, as always, go to the Word and read through it, and read about what God has told you directly, what God has told humanity on how we're supposed to serve him, how we're supposed to worship him, how we're supposed to pray to him, read Jesus' prayer, Sermon on the Mount, and then draw your conclusion on how you're supposed to live. I said this before a couple of days ago, but it's not hard to figure out what Jesus wants you to do. It's hard to do what Jesus told you to do, because it means doing things that this culture, especially more and more, is going to say is not right and is not the way of the culture. And you have to say, well, I'm going to follow God because I have to live according to my beliefs and my values, not like those corporations that are just going to signal, I have these values in this country where it's accepted, but in this country where it's not accepted, I don't actually have those values. Like, talk about hypocrisy. I don't want to live like that personally. I know we're talking about corporations and people, and that's different, but I want you to figure out your convictions so that you can have your convictions wherever you go, whether you're at work or at school or at the grocery store. You should have your convictions and you should live by them. And hopefully, my hope is your convictions are according to what God says to us. So I thank you for listening. I do pray for God to bless America as he had in the past, though a lot of the times when he did bless America, it was when America humbled themselves before him. And at this point, as we're in the middle of Pride Month, I'm not sure humility is something that we can hope for. But I do hope that God blesses you and your family, and I hope that you keep the faith.